Katie, please take the roll.
Sherry Richmond.
Here.
Donald Dell.
Here.
Darlene Fetty.
Present.
John Capes.
Here.
Hope Ing.
Present.
Robert Garland.
Here.
Brant Gomez is absent. Eddie Oakley.
Here.
Peggy Levi is absent. Susan Stringer.
Here.
Robert Kuhn is absent. A quorum is present.
Okay. I would like to call a motion to approve the minutes from the June 8th regular planning board meeting.
Motion to approve. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Right, Jose, to present the overview of the proposed text amendments to the LDO.
Good evening, chairs and members of Planning Board. I'm going to give a minute for the projection screen to heat up a little bit. Tonight, staff will be presenting the Ordinance Text Amendment Request 2026-02, which proposes updates to the Town of Jamestown Land Development Ordinance related to FEMA floodplain and flood damage prevention requirements. The proposed amendments apply to Article 3, Definitions, Article 7, Permits and Procedures, and Article 18, Flood Damage Prevention. These updates are part of the town's continued participation in the National Flood Insurance Program, commonly referred as to the NFIP. Just an overview of the request. Again, the updates are mainly and solely on Article 3, Article 7, and Article 18. The proposed amendments are based on FEMA's current non-coastal North Carolina model flood damage prevention ordinances for communities like Jamestown that are not located near the coast. The changes are primarily compliance related and are intended to make sure the town's ordinance language is consistent with FEMA and state requirements. Why we're doing this? Well, mainly because we have to. The amendments are being brought forward in coordination with FEMA and North Carolina Division of Emergency Management. The purpose is to update the town's floodplain regulations to reflect current FEMA model ordinance language, updated floodplain management practices, and revised administrative procedures and updated map references. The amendments also support Jamestown's continued participation in the National Flood Insurance Program. Continued NFIP participation is important because it helps maintain the availability of federally backed flood insurance for eligible property owners and supports eligibility for certain forms of federal disaster assistance. The updated flood insurance rate maps and flood insurance study have an effective date of June 10th, 2026. However, the town's deadline to not only adopt and also make changes to the ordinance is August 20th, 2026. So we just want to make sure that we take care of this. This heads to council next week as well, so it immediately heads to town council's desk for approval. All right, again, this is primarily a compliance item. The town must adopt updated ordinance language and associated FEMA mapping references in order to remain in good standing with the NFIP. Failure to adopt the required updates could affect the town's participation in an NFIP and could impact the availability of federally backed flood insurance and certain forms of federal disaster assistance within the town. So while the amendment is technical in nature, it is important for maintaining the town's floodplain management compliance. Again, 3 articles are being updated. Article 3, definitions, is being amended to add and update flood-related definitions used throughout the ordinance. Secondly, Article 7, permits and procedure, is being amended because Section 7.2 addresses the floodplain development and certification permit. That section needed to be updated so the town's permit procedures are consistent with the revised flood damage prevention standards in Article 18. And last but not least, Article 18, flood damage prevention, is being amended because it contains the majority of the town's floodplain development regulations. These changes bring the town's floodplain standards into alignment with FEMA and state requirements. I'll go over each of the changes. So for Article 3 is being updated to include additional floodplain related definitions. These include definitions for flood hazard zones such as A zone, AE zone, AH zone, area of shallow flooding, and X zones. The amendment also adds and updates definitions related to NFIP administration, flood proofing, manufactured homes, recreational vehicles, repetitive loss properties, Section 1316 declarations, critical facilities, and other related terms. These definitions are important because they support the updated permitting procedures, development standards, and enforcement provisions and administrative responsibilities included in Article 7 and 18. Article 7, so the floodplain permit procedures. Article 7, specifically Section 7.12, is being updated to clarify when a floodplain development permit is required. The revised language makes clear that the permit is required before development activity occurs within a special flood hazard area. The updated language also expands the types of activities covered by the permit requirement, including grading, filling, excavation, placement of structures, storage of materials or equipment, and other development activity. Article 7 also updates floodplain terminology and elevation references so that the permit section is consistent with Article 18 and FEMA model language. Also, Article 7 updates the information that must be submitted with a floodplain development permit application. The amendment updates FEMA certificate references, including current FEMA forms for elevation certificates and floodproofing certificates. The revision also updates the elevation references to NAVD 1988, which is the vertical datum used to update the floodplain standards. For floodproofing, the updated language requires supporting data, an operational plan, and an inspection and maintenance plan. Article 7 also adds or updates provisions to related flood openings, flood-resistant materials, utility protection, recreational vehicles, temporary structures, accessory structures, watercourse alteration or relocation, manufactured home foundation certification, and substantial improvement or substantial damage determinations. All right, now we're up to Article 18. Article 18 is being amended to update the basis for establishing special flood hazard areas. The revised language references the updated flood insurance study and flood insurance rate maps for Guilford County, and it also reflects the cooperating technical state agreement between North Carolina and FEMA. The updated maps have an effective date of June 10th, as I stated earlier in the presentation, and the map references must be incorporated in the town's ordinance so the town's floodplain regulations correspond with current FEMA mapping data. Article 18 includes the substantive floodplain development standards, so many of the more detailed updates are located in this article. The amendment strengthening permit submittals requirements by requiring a more complete description of the proposed development, including structures, grading, filling, paving, excavation, drilling, storage of equipment, materials, utilities, pool, bridges, drainage, facilities, and other development along a cost estimate. The article also updates elevation and floodproofing requirements, including finished construction, certification requirements, and updated FEMA forms, and NAVD 1988 elevation datum references. The development standards are also expanded to address the regulated site features such as roads, walls, tanks, watercourse crossings, accessory structures, recreational vehicles, and other development in regulated flood hazard areas. The proposed Article 18 amendments also include update for standards for floodway and non-encroachment areas. These provisions address when encroachments may be allowed and when additional FEMA map revision procedures are required. The amendments include procedures related to conditional, letters of map revision, and letters of map revision known as LOMR. These requirements apply when a proposed encroachment may affect flood elevations, floodway, or non-encroachment area widths or stream locations. The changes also updated the enforcement and administration to ensure they meet the standards provided by FEMA and the state. The new language includes procedures for stop work orders, notices of violation, additional enforcement actions, administrative appeals, judicial review, and Section 1316 declarations for properties that remain in violation after other enforcement options have been exhausted. The amendments also clarify the responsibilities of the floodplain administrator, which is me, including permit review, coordination of required local, state, and federal permits, substantial improvement determinations, and post-event damage assessment. These updates help ensure that the town has clear procedures for administering and enforcing floodplain standards. We're getting near the end. Just key takeaways. The main takeaway is that the amendment modernizes Jamestown's flood development regulations and aligns the LDO with FEMA and state requirements. The updates cover definitions, permit procedures, development standards, certification requirements, enforcement, appeals, and administrative duties. The amendment is intended to keep the town in good standing with the NFIP and ensure that the LDO reflects the updated FEMA mapping and model ordinance language. All of these edits have been sent to Matthew Stillwagon, who is an NFIP planner, and they check all the boxes. So once approved, this will meet their standards. I also did want to show just a panel of firm maps. So your responsibility as planning board is to mainly recommend the text amendment, but since there were maps included, I wanted to make sure that they were included or accessible in your report. But Jamestown jurisdiction covers panels 7811, 7812, 20, 21, 22, 23, and 31 and 32, which are located in this section here, in that circle right there. So the revised maps would be adopted by the governing board, so council is tasked not only to approve the LDO amendment, but also to adopt these maps. And again, I just want to remind the board that the remapping process is governed by FEMA and the state. The decision before the board is whether the proposed amendment is appropriate for compliance or whether the board should recommend approval to the town council. Staff's position is that the proposed amendment is primarily a compliance-based update tied to FEMA model ordinance language and updated firm and FIS references. If the planning board finds the amendment appropriate, the board may recommend town council to approve the proposed text amendment to Articles 3, 7, and 18 of the Land Development Ordinance. Again, the amendment is intended to keep Jamestown floodplain regulations consistent and compliant with FEMA and state NFIP requirements. Staff recommends that planning board recommend approval of the ordinance text amendment 2026-02 to the town council, and I'm available if there are any questions.
Jose, thank you for that river of information. First and foremost, I just want to be clear, as far as the piece of this that's FEMA-related, we had to wait to hear from FEMA before we could do any of this, correct? I mean, we had to get guidance from FEMA?
Correct, yes. So there was a little bit of a gap in communication since there was a shutdown for FEMA.
Right.
They failed to give us that 90-day window to update our ordinance, so they gave us till August to do it.
Got it.
So we'll
Yeah,
still
I'd
be
heard
ahead of schedule.
I'd had a couple people bring it up, and I was just like, that seems to be pretty straightforward, but I want to make that point clear.
Yes. And Matthew Stillwagon is coming to town council to address any questions since it will be approved that night. So he was glad to offer up his presence.
Question for you. Does the town have any discretion over the proposed language?
No, it is required. So pretty much we have to do it or, property owners lose federally backed insurance. Flood. Yep.
How often are these updated? How often are these updated?
I don't know. Do you remember when the last update was? Gotcha. But I can get that information for you.
Oh, you're good. It's just a lot of information.
The ordinance or the maps themselves?
The ordinances and the map, I guess.
Gotcha.
The question is, for the ordinance, it's just a lot of information that's getting added, so.
Yeah.
Just made me curious, like, how old our old ordinances were compared
Right.
to getting them up to speed where FEMA
Right.
would like them now. I have another question as well. So it talks about violations, flood hazard restrictions, notices, and stuff like that. So when this goes into effect, does that retroactively go back to development that's currently happening, or is it just from basically this date on?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Technically, if something doesn't meet standards, it would be considered non-compliant or grandfathered in. We use that term a lot, so.
Another question. How will the property owners be notified of the map changes? Is this the notification, the formal?
So FEMA actually did their own community input session as they were working through the map update, so that they had their own, community input where they had several meetings in case owners had questions, so. Yes,
The last firm maps were updated in 2007.
2007.
Who's in charge of administration of these rules?
For the town, it would be me. Planning director is designated as flood plan administrator. Yep.
So no additional personnel is needed?
No additional personnel. Yep.
Yeah, that was part of my question. It seems like a lot for someone to be checking. And is the D.H. Horton then underneath this? Or-
So no.
It's not, yeah, that's what he was,
Gotcha. So no, I don't believe any of that development was in a floodplain.
so it's
Correct.
grandfathered in. Okay, and that was my concern also. This seems like a lot to add to what you do already.
It was already my responsibility as planning director, so nothing's new. Yeah, it's typically the responsibility. If there is development, obviously, people try to avoid to build in the floodplain, but sometimes people want to, and if they do want to, they have to meet certain requirements before they even get that certificate of occupancy, and that requires elevations, maybe, you know, a foundation or crawl space has to have openings for the water to move through, so it's an additional cost to the owner or applicant if they want to do that, but these regulations kind of lay a road to get there if they choose to do that, so.
You mentioned inspections. Is that done by you as the planning board director? Is there a state or federal?
So-
Or do we hire that out to like?
Right, so when it mentions inspections related to building official, that would be Guilford County, because Guilford County handles all the inspections on our behalf. But if it's more site or floodplain inspections, usually that's covered either by Paul Blanchard or myself.
Okay.
For example, since I've been here, and we may have had a couple of floodplain development permits, but they were all utility related. And then Paul Blanchard, you know, will make sure to go out there on site and inspect.
Okay, thank you.
Another question.
Yes.
Does this actual update position the town well for future floodplain management? Is it?
Yes, I would say yes. It keeps us congruent with NFIP and state standards. So if we don't do this, then we might have a problem. So it's a compliance item for sure. Yes.
From reading this, would this limit some of the floodplain growth, or because we have things in here for people to be able to do it, would it encourage it or discourage it?
Not necessarily. I think everybody tries to avoid building in the floodplain. It's very, very expensive. So I wouldn't say this allows it more or restricts. It's just general language change, and our communities need to be consistent with it.
But if
Yeah,
they had to, they have something to go by.
exactly. Mhm. Any other questions or concerns? All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Jose.
Okay, thank you, Jose.
It's a lot of work.
Okay.
It's exciting read, too.
Now I open this section to the public hearing to anyone that would like to speak regarding the proposed text language amendments to the LDO. Please state your name and adhere to the 3 minutes limit. Have anybody here like to speak? Okay. All right, now I'm going to open the floor for the planning board for discussion of the updated LDO.
I think this makes sense. I think it's a lot to add, but it seems like it's clarifying a lot of language and putting a lot of things in there just for clarification for development and the flood zones. So I think it makes a lot of sense to me.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think the language is necessary. I mean, I tried very hard to read through all of it. And, it's a lot of detail, but, you know, it's in line with what we need to do for our town, so.
I agree. I thought the details were really good. You know what you can do and what you can't do, and this protects the land or supports the person who has to build there. They know exactly what they have to do. It's very clear. I like it.
Yes, this keeps us compliance ready, so, yeah, thank you.
That's the important part.
Yes. Okay. Would we like to make the planning board would like to make a motion to approve the consistency or inconsistency statement?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay, hang on a second.
Roll call.
Or do you need this read?
You gotta do a roll
That would be
call.
cool, yeah.
Roll call.
Well, no, that's the second part. Okay, so a motion to approve the proposed text amendment to the LDO to Articles 3, 7, and 18 regarding flood damage prevention for FEMA compliance.
What she said, so moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
This is a,
Roll
hang
call.
on, guys,
I'm sorry.
roll call,
Keep it straight, Katie.
sorry. Sherry Richmond,
Yes.
Donald Dell,
Yes.
Darlene Fetty. John Capes.
Aye.
Robert Garland.
Aye.
Eddie Oakley.
Aye.
Susan Stringer.
Aye.
The motion passes. Okay, now.
Now, all right. Brought my glasses this time. All right. Finding proposed text amendment consistent with comprehensive plan, I make a motion that the proposed land development ordinance text amendment to Article 3 definitions, Article 7 permits and procedures, and Article 18 flood damage prevention be approved based on the following. Number one, the proposed text amendment is consistent with the adopted comprehensive plan of the town of Jamestown. The planning board further finds that the proposed text amendment is consistent with the comprehensive plan because the amendment supports the town's ability to protect public health safety, and welfare by maintaining updated floodplain management standards, ensuring that development with the special flood hazard areas is reviewed under the current FEMA and state NFIP requirements, and preserving the town's continued participation in the National Flood Insurance Program. And number 2, the proposed text amendment is reasonable. The planning board considers the proposed amendment to be reasonable because A, the report of the town staff finding the proposed text amendment to be reasonable is adopted by reference. B, the planning board further finds that the proposed text amendment is reasonable because the amendments are primarily compliance-based and are intended to update the town's floodplain regulations to align with FEMA model ordinance language, revised flood insurance study and flood insurance rate map information for Guilford County, updated FEMA forms, NAVD 1988 elevation datum references, and current floodplain permitting certification, administrative, and enforcement procedures. And number 3, the proposed text amendment is in the public interest. The planning board considers the proposed text amendments to be in the public interest because A, the report of the town staff finding the proposed text amendment to be in the public interest is adopted by reference. B, the planning board further finds that the proposed text amendment is in the public interest because the adoption will help ensure that the town's flood damage prevention provisions remain consistent with federal and state floodplain management requirements, support continued eligibility for participation in the National Flood Insurance Program, and help maintain access to federally backed flood insurance for property owners in Jamestown. Needs a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. All right, Katie, has anybody signed up to speak during public comments?
Nobody signed up.
Okay. Jose, any other business?
I currently don't have any updates. Our regularly scheduled meeting will be August 10, 2026, but we may not have an item, and y'all need a well-deserved break because y'all been working overtime, so I will keep y'all updated if there are no main items there.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you, sir.